We're continuing on our trip through the Yukon. Happy to be welcomed in by Gordon Neal today. He is the president and CEO of Whitehorse Gold Corp. They trade on the Venture Exchange with the symbol WHG. Gordon, pleasure to meet you today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, this is a relatively new company. I think it's got foundations of a company that people will be familiar with. But give us kind of the background of Whitehorse Gold and how it kind of came about.
Yeah, the Skookum project, which was originally called the Tagish Lake project, was inside of New Pacific Metals from 2011 to 2020 when it was spun out of New Pacific Metals to make Whitehorse Gold. New Pacific is in Bolivia and has Bolivian assets, and it wasn't really getting any value for shareholders inside New Pacific. So the CEO of New Pacific and the board decided to spin it out to get value for shareholders because it was not the focus. I mean, it's got about 600,000 ounces of gold in it, gold equivalent, I should say, at a grade of about 8 or 9 grams. So it's a high-grade, past-producing gold story that needed to get some exposure so that we could get some value for shareholders for it.
And what was in 2021? What was the strategy with the company, and how does that transition for 2022?
So in 2021, there was a 17,000 meter drill program that was undertaken. Very successful program. There's a lot of infrastructure at the Skookum project. There's a 300 ton a day mill, which is not in operation right now, but it was a past producer. It produced 80,000 ounces of high-grade gold, around 10 grams per ton in the late 80s. So it's got infrastructure. It's close to Whitehorse, 40 minutes away by car, and it is really one of those assets that, with the kind of grade that we're seeing and the fact that it was a past producer and was a profitable past producer, we think that we can create a lot of value for our shareholders. That's 17,000 meters. We have gotten all the assays back. We put all the numbers out. However, we're now going to update our mineral resource estimate, and hopefully move that from the 600,000 ounce equivalent range as high as it can go. I can't say the number right now because it's internal.
Yeah. Talk to me about the infrastructure. I mean, obviously being a past producer, is there anything that is salvageable to use in a project yet, or is it? Or no, you basically started?
Yeah, the equipment that's there was used in the 80s. It's quite old. I would say you'd have to rehab the whole thing. The good thing about having that infrastructure, though, is you've actually got a footprint to build. If you want to build we want to build a 500 ton a day mill, 700 ton a day mill, we've got a footprint already there to be able to do that. You wouldn't be able to salvage much out of it, but you've got the roads and everything that lead to the mill that are still obviously intact, and that's very useful.
What about some data, exploration data, that is useful for the exploration now going forward? Is anything that's with?
Well, the 17,000 meters was very helpful to have us look into what's going on, what we're going to do in this season. We're a little late in actually getting our program started in this season, just because we're still looking at those numbers. Some of the geology is quite complex. You have 3 deposits: the Goodell deposit, the Mount Skookum deposit, and the Skookum Creek deposit. And eventually we're going to wind up hopefully doing a hub and spoke kind of a production scenario where you'd have one mill fed by the 3 deposits. But it's a little early days to say that, but we're still working on what the program is going to look like for this summer.
And let me take a step back, because you mentioned potentially putting out a new resource. Would that just be on one of the deposits or all of them?
No, it's all the deposits combined. Okay. So it's Skookum Creek, Mount Skookum, and Goodell.
Okay.
I will say that the resource update will have a singular focus on Skookum Creek, because that's where the bulk of the 17,000 meters was drilled last year. So that will make up a large part of the resource update.
Okay, very good. And you have gotten some drill results back here. I mean, it's really nice grades. Mount Skookum, the headline I think was 15.5 grams per ton gold over 7 meters. Yeah. But you mentioned it's the variable geology, and what are the expectations like based on that hit? You know, how do you kind of follow up nice grades like that?
Well, you basically you can play this game one of two ways. You can infill and drill close to that and pull out the same numbers and try to tell the investing public that you've got more when you really don't have more. Or you can step out a little bit and if you're good geologically, and we have a good technical team, we're lucky. We're 30% owned by Silvercorp Metals, and Silvercorp is a producer and a very profitable company run by Reefing. And I have access to all of his assets. I mean, I have access to mineral geologists. I have access to geophysicists. I mean, he has a huge team in China that I have access to. And it really helps us and the shareholders for me to have access to those assets. So to answer your question, I kind of went around in a little circle there. However, yes, we would infill to de-risk and to make sure that the numbers that we're showing you in the drill area are consistent, but you also want to step out to find the edges of the envelope of mineralization. So we're doing both.
What was the depth of some of the higher grade stuff there?
Yeah, it's around 400 or 500 meters.
Okay. So I'll give you obviously the last word. You know, as we kind of move forward here through the conference, and we look forward to the exploration work up at the project. You know, what do you want investors to know this week and as you move forward?
Well, I'd like them to know. I mean, investors should know that companies like Whitehorse Gold, where you have a past producer that is a high-grade past producer, that was in that era. It was certainly was the late 80s. But for Total Energy Gold, who actually drilled that, who actually processed that ore, they actually at 450 gold, they were making money with the ore that was up at Mount Skookum. And so to know that you've got the potential of good economics, and you've already have an example of good economics through past production, and all we're doing is trying to make it bigger, means that you probably have a company that you should be looking at for future investing in terms of its growth and its grade profile.
All right. Gordon, pleasure to have you on here, and thanks so much for the introduction, because I needed it just as much. I'd seen the name, didn't know much about the story, so I really appreciate the
Great. Thanks, Trevor.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's your update from Whitehorse Gold Corp and CEO Gordon Neal, again trading on the TSX Venture with the symbol WHG.